otherwise it's just you doing it yourself on your own page.
So this is what you think.
See this. Do you know who set up the page? I don't think that can be changed. It won't be able to be shared outside of the group.
Hi, Yusuf.
Hi.
It's so nice to see you.
It's nice to see you again.
You know what I would do is, better resolution.
Thank you.
So glad that. Is that you?
It is me, Karen.
I can tell that voice.
It's hard to recognize people sometimes.
I know. It's great mask too.
I didn't have a more official looking one to wear today.
Yeah. So glad you. Thank you for letting me know. We send it out. I hope that there'll be others who come. Yeah. I know Robin's coming.
You got Robin's coming?
Yeah.
Would you guys like to speak or something?
The only thing we'd like to say is we fully support the reforms that need to be.
Everything right there.
Yeah, well, let this
Right.
All right, so we got a couple more coalition members showing up, and then we're going to start
This way, interview early.
I have you right after mine. So then what I'm going to do is
Okay, great.
just go right down like here. fill in the sides. On this side of the speaker and on that side of the speaker with your sign. Good morning, brother.
Yeah, give me 1 second. It's all good.
So we got three, and Nikki's coming. Great. I mean, Molly.
Mic check, 1, 2. Cool.
You want one too?
All right. So like I said, it's gonna go me, Rob, then Molly, Nikki, and then Dr. Fishman. And then I'll ask Serge if they want to say anything after that.
Let's do a little mic check.
Serge. Say again.
Oh, we're just gonna do a little mic check, make sure everything's good. Test, test, test. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test, test. Is it?
So then, after Nikki, who's speaking? No. Serge is speaking.
Oh, Andy's gonna see it.
Okay. Now, when I introduce you, you feel free to take off your mask because we're going to be standing back here. If you want to, feel free. So when you come up, take off your mask if you want, and then put it back on when you come back here. Okay. All right. All right. Ready to rock?
Yep.
All right. Cool. Good afternoon. My name is Yusef Miller, and we want to welcome you here to our press conference. This press conference has been organized by the North County Civil Liberties Coalition, and we're forming here today over the controversial arrest in Carlsbad on June the 11th of Mr. Cox Harshaw. Mr. Cox Harshaw was arrested in Carlsbad, and there was zero attempt for de-escalation. Now, if we see what's going on around the nation, places are in uproar from coast to coast and around the world from over-policing, brutal policing, disregard for people's lives is going on all over the world, and we see changes happening from city to city. But then we have this outbreak of violence against the civilian in Carlsbad. It makes us think that the changes and the initiatives are superficial. They don't really matter. It's just placation. But we're here to say we want this to be official policy. Carlsbad has stated that they adopted the 8 can't wait policy. In the 8 can't wait, one of the 8 is required de-escalation. But if you've seen the video of the arrest of Cox Harshaw, there was zero de-escalation. They approached him from behind. They grabbed his wrist. They didn't introduce themselves. He wasn't harming anyone. He wasn't armed to our knowledge. He didn't touch anyone. He wasn't breaking any basic laws. Before law enforcement showed up on the scene, medical professionals were there from the medical team of Carlsbad and from the fire department. Bravo to those teams. They de-escalated it before the Carlsbad police showed up. They talked to the gentleman, and when he got agitated, they stepped back, they apologized, they spoke to him like a human being. But once Carlsbad police showed up, in 0 minutes, meaning within seconds, we have a violent interaction. We have struggling, we have tasing of Mr. Harshaw. It was escalated. A volatile instance was escalated into conflict unnecessarily. The district attorney, Summer Steffen, in San Diego, before COVID, she was doing a report on law enforcement interaction with people of mental health issues. And the study revealed that people throughout San Diego died within 0 minutes of contact with law enforcement if they had mental health issues. We don't know if this man had mental health issues or if he was on medication or drugs. But the issue is that he was not in a right, normal state of mind. And that should have been taken into consideration with his de-escalation. And we don't think that it would have evolved into a violent conflict. It was already volatile by the time they arrived, and then within seconds, it turned violent. From volatile to violent in under a minute. We've been seeing this all over the nation, and we're saying no more. We're here to say that we want de-escalation policies, and we have demands that the Carlsbad PD should take into account. We demand that they take into account. They claim to have 8 can't wait. But as you can see on our poster here from the North County Civil Liberties Coalition, that we recommend a CRB, a community review board of community, non-law enforcement members to review police practices. Body-worn cameras in Carlsbad should not be Velcroed to their uniform so that it is knocked off easily in case of a struggle, which we're trying to reduce. A public forum for transparency on arrests, on stops, on interaction with the community, so we can have transparency. Training of law enforcement on de-escalation, implicit biases, and things of that nature to make sure that we're not unfairly escalating a situation. And reallocate funds to public institutions that are trying to better the community. And lastly, to reprimand the officers who seem to have violated the 8 can't wait policy. We're really looking at this clearly. If you cannot reprimand the officers for violating your own policy, then how safe are we in the 8 can't wait program? Is it actually policy or is it just window dressing? We want to know. We want to have a meeting with the Carlsbad Police Department and with City Council and with the mayor to discuss this issue and move forward in a way that is in common with the rest of the nation and the intent of the rest of the nation. Black Lives Matter. We're trying to institute a system where everyone is treated fairly, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is. We want to make sure that everyone has the right to be on public streets in America. Carlsbad includes America. So now I would like to introduce some of our guest speakers from our allies. Our first one will be the North County NAACP chapter, Mr. Robert Jenkins.
Good afternoon. I stand here in solidarity with the North San Diego County Civil Coalition's, the Civil Liberties Coalition and the Showing Up for Racial Justice organization, community, black men all around this country. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that today is the anniversary of Juneteenth. Now, Juneteenth is a celebration that started June 19th, 1865, that all slaves were free. Now, when we talk about all slaves were free, there was a celebration that happened during that time, and that's why we commemorate June 19th every year. And we thank President Trump for letting everybody know that Juneteenth is a day that we celebrate now. I'm just kidding. Now, when we talk about slavery, we talk about it was a big celebration, but what Americans need to understand is that even though the shackles are off, that black Americans, we're still in bondage. We're not free. We're not free from racial injustice. We're not free from racism. We're not free from police brutality. Now, let me say this. We support all police officers, their departments, but there are exceptions. They have a role in our community to protect and serve, which means to protect our citizens and to serve our community. Now, it means, for some officers, it means to protect the officers and to serve the police force in a time of police brutality. Now, the proverbial mindset of some police officers see us as second-class citizens, inferior, have no value at all. Marcel Cox-Harshaw arrest is another example of why we need de-escalation training and police reform. Now, they continue to tase this young man, even though he was restrained. Thank God he didn't die like our brother George Floyd, Rayshon Brooks, Breonna Taylor, and countless others in our community. All lives matter, black, white, brown, but when there are senseless killings and injustices of black men disproportionately, black lives matter. We're just tired. After watching the video, it was unconscionable and indespicable. We know that this was not an isolated incident because it's happening all over our country. In fact, all over the world. I turned on the news this morning and there was an officer-involved shooting in Escondido. And this is a city that I live, only about 2 miles from my home. Now, the officer pulled over a young man because of a restraining order violation. He gets out of the car and he has a crowbar. So immediately, the officer fired 5 shots on this individual. Now, we don't know if the individual has passed away. They haven't let us know that yet. But we're talking about that situation could have been de-escalated. The officer was on duty for 4 years. Now, there should have been something in place to de-escalate that situation. We don't know if he had mental health issues or what, but it's just wrong, and it's deplorable. It's not okay to use deadly force. It's not okay to use excessive force when you're dealing with the mental ill, the homeless, DUI, or any other human being. We need to hold them accountable. The police chief, the police, the mayor, the DA, the state, and the national government. There are no exceptions. We're asking that all citizens stand with us in solidarity to fight this police brutality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Molly Woods from Encinitas for Equality.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to stand here in allyship with your organization today and to all the other organizations that have been doing this work for the decades and decades that it has been necessary. I wanted to give, I understand that there is a laundry list of ways that our Black communities are oppressed. I came this morning from an action at the hospital where I'm a union rep to talk about healthcare oppression and how we can't have racial justice without healthcare justice. But we're here today standing in front of a police station because police brutality and the oppression because of our justice system is really, really impacting our communities of color and causing these deaths. And so I think it's important to understand the history of police and policing when it comes to our Black lives. When we think about the police history in the beginning ages of our country, we think about the Texas sheriffs going around on their horses and making sure that things are being held accountable for. But what we don't talk about is that the origin of policing in the South came from slave patrols. And so I want to talk about that, the fact that historian Gary Potter, slave patrols served 3 main functions: to chase down, apprehend, and return their owners, runaway slaves, to provide a form of organized terror to deter slave revolts, and 3, to maintain a form of discipline for slave workers who were subject to summary justice outside of the law. That's 400 years ago, and it sounds like that's exactly what happened in Carlsbad this past weekend. And so when people want to speak up on behalf of good cops, and I'm sure there are many, it is the entire system that is built on oppression. And so I received a text message from one of our activists' daughter, and he is who recorded the video, and he is who was the witness. And they asked, what do we do about this? We should not be asking our citizens, our fellow citizens, what do we do about police brutality? It should be a very simple process that if police brutality is committed, you are held accountable by the organization that you work for. And that is not happening. And so in Encinitas, we call for the same actions that are being called for in Carlsbad. We want there to be a citizen review panel to look at the lack of de-escalation and issues that are being held and hold our police accountable. We want to make sure that there is a task force that is created to look at where funds can be best allocated to de-escalate, to make sure that we have mental health professionals, social workers, that our education systems are providing the best type of education so that people aren't being raised to be racist and make racist decisions. And so we truly believe that there are many, many ways that police funds can be better allocated into the community that will keep our communities of color, and especially our Black lives, alive, and they feel safe and served and protected, which is supposed to be the goal. And so we stand behind all of the organizations that are here today, demand the same actions, and look forward to our city council here in Carlsbad coming to the table with these organizations. And if not, no justice, no peace is not a slogan. We will be here as often as we have to be, and we will get all of our members here to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Next, we will hear from Nikki Fedek from Moms Demand Action.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikki Faddick, and I am the volunteer lead of North County, San Diego Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We are here because we believe the escalation of the incident with Mr. Cox Harshaw was unnecessary and did not align with the standard for de-escalation. We are here because we believe in police reform, and we believe that the moment is now. I am also here because in 2012, a young family member of mine, a 15-year-old biracial teenager named Derek Gaines, was shot and killed by a South San Francisco police officer who is now employed by the San Francisco Police Department. For Derek, for George Floyd, and far too many, this moment is arriving too late. Here in our city, the 5 points we have outlined would go a very long way toward keeping our Black and brown neighbors safe and making earnest reform a reality, all while costing the department very little and greatly increasing public trust in it. The bottom line is that the police do not have a monopoly on public safety. There are organizations represented here today that have been doing the work of fighting for this reform long before this moment. And our own organization has for 2 years been a part of a large coalition of organizations that have advocated for funding for community-based intervention groups that can serve as alternatives to policing, especially in communities where trust is eroded. Investment in intervention groups and programs is investment in public safety and public trust. We must imagine new possibilities. Police reform is not something that is happening on TV, on the news, somewhere else. It needs to happen in our own county and right here in Carlsbad. Civilian oversight, transparency, and dialogue, a demonstrated, durable commitment to de-escalation. For our Black and brown neighbors, for our whole city, we must meet the urgency of this moment, and these are the reforms we are asking for. We are urging our Carlsbad neighbors to contact our council and mayor and make our voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Andy from Showing Up for Racial Justice.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for allowing us to stand here with you in allyship. We are Showing Up for Racial Justice. North County is a local group that is part of a national network that stands for racial justice. We educate people, we mobilize them, we organize them to work against racial justice. That we are not enough. Every right-thinking American has to be appalled by all of the events recently and the knowledge that there have been too many before that. This is overdue, this moment. What we do with this moment is something that we will tell our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren. They will tell them. We want 2020 to be the year that police departments like Carlsbad institute transparent policing and institute community review boards, because studies have shown that oversight is the only way for any reform that is put in place to go forward. We stand with a better police department that is less pressured to offer services that they cannot provide. They are given hammers. That is why everybody inevitably is in danger of becoming a nail in that situation. We need to give access to the other community organizations that know how to do that and do it better. And that is the first step towards de-escalation, along with training and especially with community review boards. We stand with North County Civil Liberties Coalition, it's a mouthful, to advance all of their reforms, and we are not going away either. In this town or in any other town, we are, in this moment, we are all Carlsbad. None of our towns in America have the reforms that we would like to see to the extent that they need to happen to provide safety and equal rights for everybody in America. It's time to get busy. The time is now.
Thank you. Lastly, we'll have Dr. Darwin Fishman from the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego.
Thank you, my brother Yusuf Miller, for inviting us, including us. Yes, I'm Darwin Fishman, and I'm with the Racial Justice Coalition. I appreciate being here, but it's also a heavy heart with Juneteenth, having to come here and to be speaking on police brutality. Let me first say, Racial Justice Coalition, we've been engaged the last 3 years in banning neck restraints, all neck restraints, and we are very pleased and happy that the first in San Diego City, the police chief and the mayor announced an end to it, and then the county sheriff Gore announced an end to all neck restraints. But that was a very bittersweet victory. We had been for 3 years working on neck restraints, and it's a reminder here with Juneteenth that this does go back to lynching. This is a practice that us black men have experienced for literally hundreds of years. And we had to fight tooth and nail to end neck restraints, making them legal in San Diego City and the county. San Diego is one of the last major cities in the US that banned them. And this was one piece of a campaign. We haven't stopped here. It does have to do with law enforcement in our community and how they act. And I'm in El Cajon now. I'm not usually over here. I did live in Vista, but it's extraordinary going around the county and having all these cases. We just mentioned Alongo, and he was killed in El Cajon. It was similar for mental health in terms of the police and approaching him, shooting him very quickly, no assessment of the situation, and not a danger or risk anyone. And we've seen this also here in North County with people like Sergio Wick and Jonathan Cornell shot in the back, killed by sheriff deputies. And San Diego seems very slow, behind the curve, to enact very sincere reforms, whether it's local police departments or the county. And I'm here as part of the Racial Justice Coalition and united with my allies in trying to get real police reform and real structural reform that'll really change the way they operate in these communities. And this incident here in Carlsbad, as was laid out very well by Yusuf, never had to happen. I mean, literally, if the police walked away, there was no crimes being committed. And at most, it's an infraction for being drunk in public. And that is something that obviously paramedics can handle if given an opportunity, which is really sad that in that kind of situation that the police at best seem to intervene and overtake what was already being a situation that was being addressed. And I think it's really critical for our work going forward to really get out of this cycle of all these horrific incidents, and not just looking at this on a national level, but really what's taking place on a regular basis in San Diego, and not waiting for these videotapes to come out, but to really change the way the police interact with us in our communities, and especially in marginalized communities where we have little voice and little power. And that's what we're trying to do. And whether it's piece by piece, if it's chokehold, or if it's the way that the canine units are done, or where police are sent out for criminal or non-criminal offenses, we're going to keep at this and keep struggling for this. And we hope that more and more people will join us, and again, not wait till it bubbles over in this crisis. And when we do hit these crises, the last thing I'll just say is that we are looking for really concrete action. The last message I just sent out to my friends when I saw this videotape and the arrest is, there is police officers that are doing less than this now in cities that are getting fired and that are being arrested. I really want to see how, again, San Diego, we react to these situations. There is no better way in that sense than sending a signal that you're taking this serious than doing what some police departments are doing now, which is firing officers and then prosecuting them as needed. And I really hope those steps are taken and that signal sent to the Carlsbad police that they just can't act with impunity and do what they want to do in our communities, and how they interact with people that they think are poor, black, and marginalized, and that they can get away with it. So I really appreciate people coming out, and this is the way that you show Black Lives Matter, and this is our best way of moving forward. Thank you.
After the arrest of Cox Harshaw, Carlsbad police had the videotape reviewed by a so-called expert on de-escalation. And we can all imagine what the results was. Thumbs up, you did a great job. This is why we need community input on these kinds of investigations. This is why we need transparency. This is why law enforcement can investigate themselves, because they will always come back exonerated. They got a thumbs up from some expert that this video went by the numbers and it was okay. So we're saying that we need to be involved. The community needs to be involved in police oversight, not other police officers. It is fitting that we're here on Juneteenth. Many of my black friends, we could be at barbecues, we could be at celebrations, we could be at all different kinds of things. But actually, what we're doing here now is the heart of Juneteenth. I would rather be no place else on Juneteenth than standing here fighting for Cox Harshaw, fighting for Alfred Alongo, Earl McNeil, fighting for Aaliyah Jenkins, fighting for Raul Rivera, fighting for Vito Vitale, fighting for Jonathan Cornell, Sergio Wick. All of these names are local San Diego names. They have lost their lives here in San Diego. So while we're here and we talk about our George Floyd's, God rest his soul, while we talk about our Breonna Taylors, while we talk about them, we cannot forget what goes on here in San Diego. Thank you. That concludes our press conference, and our speakers are available for one-on-ones, and if you have any questions. Thank you. Great job, everybody. Knocked it out of the park. Great job. Great job.
Hi, excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys have anyone that speaks Spanish?
Spanish.